Sean Ryan from Breitbart News. Here we are with Congressman Fitzgerald. I was wondering if you could talk about what do you think the president should say during the State of the Union address?
You know, obviously, I think he'll probably lead with Ukraine because it's on the forefront of everyone's mind right now. Members of Congress have received numerous briefings on kind of what the situation is and how it's developing. And I will say, I mean, I think, you know, the one thing that's really stood out in my mind after talking to other members, being back in D.C. now as of yesterday, is that, you know, the threat by Putin of nuclear war has kind of changed the landscape. I mean, everybody's kind of thinking about conventional warfare a little bit different because of that threat. And it's not something that, you know, the free world has ever faced before, and that's why this is such a challenge right now.
How do you think the president's doing with his response to the current crisis that's happening in Ukraine right now?
I mean, I'm disappointed that we had a briefing way back at the beginning of February, and I think a lot of members of Congress left there, including myself, thinking that there were going to be some sanctions that would be immediate and swift and kind of change the dynamic of what's going on. But because they kept pumping the brakes and waiting and waiting and waiting, you know, now we find that a lot of these sanctions are being put in place after the invasion. And unfortunately, this is evolving so much faster than anyone had thought before that it just makes you wonder if those sanctions would have been in place, would it have had an effect on the initial invasion and what we're seeing right now?
Do you think there are any under-discussed issues that's been going on recently that you think the president should talk about? Everyone's going to talk about Ukraine, inflation, and other things, but is there any other issues you're personally interested in that you want to hear?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I know, you know, after being back in the district for a couple of weeks and doing a number of events, talking to constituents, doing some office hours and that, there's a lot of people that are kind of just concerned about the labor market, not necessarily for themselves, but kind of for their kids or even their grandkids, where, you know, wages have escalated in a lot of different industries, but it's kind of pushed down the amount of jobs that are available. So when you see something that says, you know, the labor market's wide open and go ahead and apply and you're going to make $25 an hour, the reality of that kind of rubs against what's really going on. And I think that is a story that's kind of underreported. It seems like there's just jobs available everywhere, but when you look at the types of jobs and the criteria that are involved, you know, some of them are much more technical than what somebody walking in off the street is going to have available to them. So trying to get that all to match up, I think, is something we're all kind of struggling with now.
How do you think that all kind of compares to the economy that was roaring under President Donald Trump?
You know, when President Trump was in, and with, you know, not only the tax cut package that should remain in place, but even before that, I think just kind of the attitude and what he brought to the table just changed the dynamic for the private sector. I mean, you could really tell that a lot of these small to medium-sized businesses were really being more aggressive on their own. And even the banks and the credit unions were a little bit more eager to kind of jump in with both feet and make sure that the capital was available to them to make some of these moves to grow their business, to grow their sector. And that's lagging now. I don't think there's any question about it. It's just kind of disappeared. And that's all something that's driven by leadership and the message from the top down.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Congressman Fitzpatrick. I'm Sean Ryan from Breitbart News.
Good to be with you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.